All right, so if you're thinking of moving to Minnesota, I want to give you the version that nobody is going to give you in a sales pitch. Hi, friends. I am Mackenzie Rasmus. I am a global real estate advisor here at Engel Völkers Minneapolis, and I work out of our Wayzata shop right here on Lake Minnetonka. And I help people relocate to the Twin Cities every week from California, from Texas, from Utah, from Virginia, Florida, Illinois, anywhere in between. And sometimes I hear things or like, I wish somebody told us about this thing or that thing. And so we're going to be talking about all of the truths, both positive and negative, that are real and legit, and there's going to be absolutely no filters. So we're going to be talking about everything from the winters to the hot dish to everything in between. Okay, so let's start with the good stuff, because there is a lot of it, and some of it I feel like will genuinely shock people that aren't really expecting it. So the first pro is the cost of living. Now, if you're moving here from really many of the coastal cities, California, the Pacific Northwest, certainly New York, Boston, you're gonna feel like you've been living on hard mode your entire life. The median home price in the Twin Cities metro sits significantly below what you'd pay in LA or San Francisco, San Diego, and New York. And we're talking homes that are like actually great. 3 bedrooms, finished basement, real yards, and a high-rated school district for a fraction of the price. In the West Metro suburbs, where I work mostly, Wayzata, Minnetonka, Plymouth, Edina, your dollar goes further than almost anywhere in the country at this lifestyle level. You're getting lake access and top-ranked schools and environment, a commute that doesn't require a podcast to survive. And if you're coming from the Bay Area specifically, first of all, come close with your high salary. You can get a 4-bedroom house in a cul-de-sac for less than what a parking spot costs you in Palo Alto. Just letting you know. Okay, but even if you're coming from Texas or Illinois, the value comparison still holds once you factor in what you're getting for in a price per square foot and what the neighborhoods actually look like. Quick pause. If you're already thinking like, okay, but I want to know what my budget actually gets me, you can just text me directly at 612-801-4565. That's right there. Bar is so low. Answer my own texts. I am a real person. I promise. So let's talk next about the food and the arts and the entertainment scene. This one I feel like surprises people the most, and I understand why, because Minnesota doesn't have the PR machine that a New York or a Chicago would have, but the Twin Cities cultural scene is world class. And if you haven't been here in a few years, you don't know how much it has grown and evolved. So let's start with the food. Minneapolis has one of the highest restaurant per capita rankings than almost any city in the country, compared to, of course, excluding like the top few. But we have James Beard nominations that just keep coming in. We've got everything from Hmong and Somali cuisine on the east side to farm-to-table spots in the North Loop to waterfront dining in Wayzata and Excelsior that you would fly into for it if it were in another city. And the food here is not what people expect. I have watched people move here and they're like, we are bracing for casserole and maybe some ketchup for spice. And they leave 5 years later having eaten their way through the most interesting food city that they have ever lived in. Hot dish not included. Oh, actually, hot dish included, because once you try it, you will be converted. And then there's the arts. The Guthrie Theater sits right on the shores of the Mississippi River. It is one of the top regional theater companies in the country. You've got Orchestra Hall, you've got the Walker Arts Center, you've got the Minneapolis Institute of Art, all within a few miles of each other. Guys, Prince was from here. The music scene is real and it is still alive to this day. And then, of course, you got sports. You got the Vikings, Twins, Timberwolves, Wild, Lynx, and they all play in the metro. You are never without something to go to. Whether or not that's a pro or con depends entirely on, how you feel about the Vikings, what your coping mechanisms are, but we don't need to get into that. I'll save my Vikings talk for therapy. So if you move from a coastal city and you're worried whether you're going to be bored, I swear you won't be. The social calendar in the Twin Cities can keep up with basically anywhere. And let's talk about a third pro, the Lake Minnetonka lifestyle. Because I am here on the shores of Lake Minnetonka, I want you to actually understand what this is, because if you haven't spent time here, you might be, picturing like a pond. Fair. However, Lake Minnetonka is a 14,528 acre lake with 110 miles of shoreline across 14 connected bays. In the summer, it is full of boats and paddle boards and sailboats and people who moved here decades ago, and they will never leave. The Wayzata Yacht Club, which is just right over here on the next bay, sits on the water right in the middle of a walkable downtown with restaurants and boutiques and a farmer's market. And then the winter comes and people will ice fish on it. They'll skate on it. They'll run snowmobiles across it, which again is either amazing or insane depending on where you grew up. Both reactions are valid. I think what is the most important thing to say is that this is not a lifestyle that you can replicate. It's one of its kind in the Midwest. It's right in the backyard of a major metro with a $60 billion healthcare and tech economy in the Midwest. Speaking of the economy, let's talk about the economy and the job market. So currently, the Twin Cities is home to 17 Fortune 500 companies. That is more Fortune 500 companies per capita than almost any metro in the country. Target, United Health Group, Best Buy, US Bancorp, General Mills, they are all here. And if you're relocating for a job or your company has a presence here, the professional ecosystem is very impressive. The unemployment rate consistently tracks below the national average, and the healthcare and tech sectors have been growing for years. Pro 5, I feel like the quality of life doesn't get enough credit. Minnesota is regularly ranked in the top 5 states for overall quality of life. The healthcare system, it's not a political comment, is exceptional here compared to other states. The parks are real, the trails are maintained, people actually use them year-round, which honestly, that still impresses me. And then there's, I think, a genuine sense of community here that people that move from the coastal cities say that surprises them the most. Minnesotans are reserved until they're not. And then they're some of the most loyal people you'll ever meet. Your neighbors will show up with a snowblower before you even know that there's a snowstorm. All right, I told you it was going to be real. Let's talk about the cons now. So I'm going to be honest with you. These are the things that trip people up. These are real, and, you know, I'm going to be real with you. I'm not going to minimize them. So, okay, let's start with the obvious one, the winter. Yes, they are cold. You see where we are on a map. It's going to expect that it's going to be a thing. It's a real thing that you have to deal with. I'm not going to sugarcoat it because, you know, I sell real estate here. January average highs are around 22 degrees Fahrenheit in the Twin Cities. But the wind chill can push temperatures to minus 20 or colder during a bad stretch. There will be days, and sometimes it's a full week, where you do not want to be outside. I don't even think it's safe for you to go outside or even think about going outside. The sun sets around 4:30 in December, which that in of itself is its own psychological experience. Now, here's what people who move here don't always say out loud. After that first winter, most people adjust. You buy the gear, you get the remote start for your car, which honestly should just be a standard everywhere in the rest of the country, but you know, they don't have to worry about it because they don't have winter. You stop dreading it though, and you actually start just living through it. Cross-country skiing, ice fishing, hockey, fire pits, and a hot drink at a lakeside coffee shop. Winter in Minnesota has this culture, it's like a subculture around it that gets to you and under your skin, whether you like it or not. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that it wasn't a factor. So if you do have a medical condition aggravated by cold weather, or if you genuinely cannot tolerate being indoors for long stretches, I would take that seriously before you make the move. By the way, if you're still watching and you're thinking, I'm in, but I have no idea where to start with a relocation timeline or what even the logistics of that looks like, that's the exact conversation I have with people every week. There's no pressure, there's no sales pitch. You can just text me at 612-801-4565, or you can email me, you can get on my calendar, we can figure out what makes sense for you in your situation. Okay, so let's talk about the income tax. So Minnesota has what's called a progressive state income tax with a top rate of 9.85. And no, that doesn't mean that it's like very, very liberal. It just means that as you make more, you progressively get taxed more and more. And ours is one of the highest in the country. If you're coming from Texas or Florida, which has no state income tax, this is going to feel like a punch when you look at that first paycheck. It's real, and that could be a meaningful factor for some of the high earners. The way most of my relocation clients think about it, they say that they're trading a tax bill for what you're getting in return. The infrastructure is better, the schools are better, the roads are better, the parks are better. You're not just paying more to pay more. You're actually getting more for it. Now, whether that trade makes sense for you and your household is just it's a personal question, and only you can answer that. But going in with eyes open matters a lot more than being surprised in April. Another thing too is that the real estate market is competitive here. I see buyers come in expecting a slow, sleepy Midwest market, and they get surprised real quick. The West Metro, specifically again where I work mostly in Wayzata, Minnetonka, Edina, Plymouth, it's not a buyer's market in the traditional sense. Inventory in premium price ranges is very tight. Well-priced lakefront properties, they move fast, and in school districts that draw relocation families, there is real competition for good homes. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't buy well here. It just means that you have to have your you-know-what together, your ducks in a row, if you will. You have to be prepared, be pre-approved, and then, of course, work with somebody who knows what they're doing and not just be searching on Zillow, which, conveniently, is exactly what I do. So, Con 4, Minnesota nice is real, and here's what I tell people, it has a learning curve. Minnesotans, we're warm, we're welcoming, and I do think we are genuinely good people, but there is this social reservedness here that it can take some time to navigate, especially if you're from a culture, like if you're from the East Coast where people are immediately more open and they tell you exactly what they're thinking. You will be invited to things. People will be friendly, but the depth of the friendship takes longer to build here than in some places. There's actually a term for it called Minnesota nice, and it means that everyone will be perfectly pleasant to your face, and then they go home and have a full separate opinion about you that they have never said out loud. Maybe even they won't even say it to their spouse. It's charming once you just understand the rules of it, but it does take a minute to learn. It passes, but it's worth knowing before it exists, before you interpret someone's polite wave as like a deep personal bond. Here's the bottom line. Minnesota, I believe, is genuinely one of the best places in the country to raise a family, build a career, live a life that has texture and a quality of life to it. The economy, the outdoor lifestyle, the food scene, the value you get in the real estate market relative to the coast. Guys, it's a slam dunk argument for me, or at least it's a very strong one. Now, the cons, of course, are real too. The winters require that mindset shift, and the tax situation requires honest math, but the market requires preparation. Yes, you will need to buy a good coat. Not a California coat, not a fake coat that you get to rock as you're going down Beverly Hills, a real coat. Now, if you're still thinking about it after all of that, you're probably going to love it here. And most people do. The ones who don't usually knew before they moved. Now, this video was designed to help you figure out which one of those that you are. And if you have questions on what it looks like for you, please let me know. I got more videos on the best West Metro suburbs, what different budgets actually look like, what you get out here, and a full breakdown of so many of the communities here in the Twin Cities. It's all linked down below. If you're ready to have that conversation, again, email, text, book a call with me. All of it works. I respond to any and all way you want. Heck, you even want to slide into my DMs on Instagram. Feel free to reach me that way. I will still respond to you. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.